Have you ever, correctly, had a gut feeling to dislike someone who, on the surface, was a cool person that everybody else liked? When I was a boy, 7-8, at a coffee shop I would go to with my parents frequently, there would often be a middle-aged Asian woman hanging out. She was a regular. The baristas knew her. My parents were friendly with her. Sometimes I would play board games with my parents and her. She gave me the creeps, but I couldn't pinpoint why. My parents knew I didn't like her much, but not the full extent. Anyway, the very first time I was with her without my parents there, they were starting the car or something like that. She tried to get me to come back to her house. She wouldn't take no for an answer and got pushy. When my parents came back I told them what happened and we never went there again. My sister's boyfriend. I just immediately found him to be very fake and disingenuous, but the rest of the family loved him and we found him very charming. He owned a running store franchise that was more successful than the original store and was also doing well trading on the stock market. He sold the store back to the owners for a ton of money to focus on the stock market, but this was around the time of the market crash. So to help with that he worked at the store as a salesman. They eventually got married and bought a huge house, and that's when the cops came knocking at the door to their large home with a view. He wasn't rich, he never owned the store, he was only ever a worker and had been stealing cash from the register products and selling them on eBay. The divorce came quick after that. I have a similar story. Psychophant Jeremy, a Weasley looking younger dude I worked with at a music shop in the UK. He was the perfect employee, early to work, stayed late every day. He'd fix things and tinker about being all helpful when there were no customers and I was sitting around playing the expensive keyboards. I always knew he was hiding something inside, but the managers loved him for the reasons above, had nicknames for him and then I left the job. Fast forward a few months, I go in for some guitar strings, and Jeremy's not there. Jeremy had been stealing those expensive keyboards and high-end audio equipment. That's why he was staying late all the time. He was loading the gear into his Mini out the back of the shop. He'd been at it for ages. He got sent to court and last I heard he was paying back incremental installments of thousands of pounds worth of stolen goods. He got caught because he had left his eBay account logged onto the manager who loved him's computer, and all the gear on there tallied, in reverse chronological order, with the stuff that had been going missing. That was my chance for an I told you so, but Gordo looked hurt enough by it already. One of my brothers was dating this girl, and everyone else had met her several times before I did since I was off at college. So the first impression I get of her is when she shows up at our house and just walks right in. Doesn't knock, doesn't let anyone know she's in there, just walks herself inside and sits on the couch. So then when I come down the hallway into the living room, she had this super vapid smile on her face. I just had this weird gut instinct that she was hiding something from everyone and was going to fight to the death to keep it hidden. I expressed to my mom that she gave me a weird vibe and I got told to stop being jealous, but long story shorter, she ended up having an entire other relationship and life with another guy 3 hours away. How did your brother find out? Her other guy came to see her one day and she told my brother that he was an old co-worker. So my brother said he'd take them all out to lunch and she lost her and it all unraveled. She admitted to everything, from using my brother for money to having this whole relationship for their entire relationship. Apparently, when I was 4 or 5, my grandma introduced me to some new boyfriend. Everyone liked him, but I would have nothing to do with him. Wrinkled my nose, wouldn't be left alone by him. I guess he just came into her apartment one day and walked at her with something behind his back. Said nothing. She got an eerie feeling and said, "Are you going to kill me?" With a dead-faced stare he came at her. She managed to jump over some furniture and get away. She's always been in great shape, running 3 miles a day until age 80. She got somewhere safe, called the police and never saw him again. The girlfriend and I used to work at the same ski hill, and the place was pretty much full of seasonal employees, revolving door status. Anyway, she got this new dude in her department that everyone thought was a super nice guy. I did not trust him. There was just something about the way he talked to female employees that just seemed weird. He was trying to gain their trust way too quick. I made my sentiments known to my girlfriend and other friends and they thought I was just being jealous or something. I worked part-time out of town at the time, and he'd always ask me what days I was gone. It was weird. He also didn't have a car, so sometimes my girlfriend would give him a ride home and he'd ask her to hang out at our place when I was out of town. She declined. So at the end of the season, a female friend of ours and this kid decide to rent a place together. They weren't dating, and as they're in the final steps, federal marshals show up and arrest him. Turns out he had been on the run for over a year for kidnapping and raping a girl in a different part of the country. His family had been helping him, and he took the name of his brother while on the run. Filling out the housing application somehow tipped off the marshals. Trust your instincts. My mom was a single mom and did the best she could. However, she thought it might be better to leave me with a neighbor than at home alone. From the age of 6, I pleaded with my mom to let me stay home alone until she got home from work, that I would be okay. My intuition was right. The neighbor was convicted of multiple murders of single mom 1 and 2 towns over when DNA evidence came into being. He only liked to date and kill non-obese women. Fortunately my mother was fat. Your mama so fat. She survived and lives a happy life. A pastor who was involved in the community outreach program for a prison, which I volunteered to for the first time, seemed very friendly on the outside but seems really creepy to me. He kept putting his hands on my shoulder on that day and got my number from one of the volunteers and called me non-stop that night to say he is lonely and wants to talk. I was 14 at the time. Some girl started talking to me on the bus ride home. I thought there was something off about her, but my parents, who are inherently optimists, told me to be nice and hang out with her. They even invited her over for dinner a few times. She lived about a 4-minute walk away from me, so it was hard to come up with excuses not to hang out. We eventually hung out a few times and I found out that she was a foster kid and had gotten bounced around a lot. She was also on a lot of medication for bad joints, bipolar disease and a few other things. She was almost 18. Well anyway, turns out she was having an affair with the father and they plotted together to kill the mom so that they could be together. They made sure to plan it during a time when the dad was out of town. The girl ends up stabbing her foster mother to death and the family's biological daughter is the one to call 911. They put the 911 tape up online and it was the worst thing I've ever listened to. TLDR, strongly urged by my parents, previously forced to hang out with a girl on my bus. She ends up having an affair with her foster father and stabbing her foster mother to death because the dad convinced her to. Their 14-year-old biological daughter witnessed the whole thing. While in the army we moved into a new house in upstate New York. We were being neighborly and talked to a guy across the street. He had 5 kids, no wife. He also had multiple neighborhood kids playing in the yard. He told us we can always send ours over. He gave us both this horrible feeling, so we smiled and gtfo. About a year later my wife told me, I was in Kandahar, that his kids were taken from him. He had been doing inappropriate things with them at least ever since his wife died. My stepdad, on the surface, he seemed like a good guy, went to church twice on Sundays and once on Wednesday, always helped out when someone needed help, whether it was something as simple as loaning $5 to something as complicated as roofing a house. Had a good paying job, refused to smoke inside the house. When him and my mom went out on dates, he always made sure to bring home food for all of us, and toys for the younger kids, would randomly take everyone out to dinner, or to the theater. Despite all of that, I disliked him from the moment I met him, even before he showed interest in my mom. People told me I was being paranoid, not to worry about. Fast forward a year, him and my mom are married. I just got a job and was waiting on my first paycheck to move out on my own. My manager gets a frantic call that I need to come home pronto. My stepdad had been secretly spending all of our bill money on pot. We were about to be evicted. The power had already been disconnected. Water service was about to be, and stepdad tried to kill my pregnant mom. A few years ago, when I was still in college, I took a summer job at a movie theater. I met a lot of really cool people there, including my but there was this one guy who always gave me the creeps. We'll call him Drew. He was friends with almost everyone, including my and had been for years. We'd attend the same parties and he'd do all these little things that would feel like red flags to me, but apparently not to anyone else. Fast forward about a year, I no longer work there. ISO and I have been together for maybe a year, and he has been promoted to manager. Drew has also been promoted to supervisor. It should be noted that there were a lot of teenagers employed at this theater. One day, two of the younger girls come into the office. If they were 18, they were only just to talk to Miso. They tell him they're sorry because they know Miso is friends with Drew, but they have to tell him something. The younger one tells him that a few weeks prior, she was sitting alone in the break room, eating her lunch. Drew walks in and says to her, "Do you touch yourself?" She doesn't answer. He says, "Because if not, you should." I think he said more, but Miso is so furious when he told me that story that he was having trouble telling it. Miso fills out the report for the poor girl and passes it on to the GM, who then informs him that Drew had 5 counts of SUAL harassment on his file already. But corporate loved him, so they could never fire him. Miso never spoke to Drew again. Last I heard, he was fired, removed from his job at a brewery by security for SUAL harassment. Many of our other friends are still very close with him. I don't understand it, but I'm just thrilled to have that creep out of my life. Kind of related, not a person but a dog. Years ago I had a GF who lived at home with her sister, parents, 3 dogs and a cat. One of the dogs was a big goofy lab that loved everyone. I mean everyone. 2-year-olds could climb all over him and he loved it. Anyway, the sister had been seeing some guy for a little while, maybe a month, and she's bringing him home to meet the family for the first time. The guy hadn't even come to the door yet. The dog was in the house and went ballistic. I had never seen anything like it. He went from goofball to apex predator. Needless to say, he couldn't come in the house. They had to leave. About 2 weeks later the sister comes home. He had slapped her and she ended it. She also found out that he beat his ex-wife before her. One of my husband's aunts has a German Shepherd. He's a big, dumb, scared of his own shadow and fireworks type. He once knocked down a cousin and growled at her because he thought I was being rough with my kid. No sweetie, he saw you being rough and protected the kid. It was literally his first time jumping on anyone, let alone knocking them over. He's seen us roughhouse and LARP. I would argue he knows the difference between real violence and play. He's a good dog and always get table scraps from me now, and cuddles when there are fireworks. My mother's cousin is a vet out in a rural area. This dude makes bank and is a really super nice guy. He was very close with his elderly mom and dad. Sadly, his first wife lost a ton of weight and then felt that she was out of his league and left him. Few years later he shows up to my mom's house with his Sophia Loren type, 10x out of his league. She was all sweet and sugar pie to everyone. I forgot what I did to piss her off, but it was an accident, but she broke character for just a second and let Cruella Darville show through. I was a kid, and she grabbed my arm and looked at me like she would kill me. Everyone said I was crazy and mean and that Lux on everything and that she loves him. Like I was trying to sabotage his relationship. F me right? Flash forward 2 years, she kicked his parents out of the house they were in for 50 years, sold their home against their will, stole all their money, forced him to choose between them and her. Sadly he chose her. She drained him, tore apart his family and ruined the last year of his father's life. He died scared and miserable. Told his mother, "Just give me the money. You won't live long enough to use it." It broke her heart that her son just stood there. But karma paid her a visit to the tune of acute leukemia and she died. His mother is still alive in her 90s and doing pretty well. He's back in the fold, just sucks his father didn't get to see the end where everything went back to the way it was. City council hired another medic. Older dude with long hair. Not that that matters. He was new to the scene, recently completing the course. Guy Y awesome to hang out with. Went to the bar with the younger emts. Played video games, etc. At first I thought he was cool, but as I observed his work, I was his superior and did his probationary eval, I noticed something was off. At the private council meeting I spoke openly about this in his 30-day review. I stated something was off. He didn't seem like a people person and generally the type that would do this job. They said that I had no grounds to state that he wasn't suited and that he did his job as described. I countered with the fact that when caring for people, being a people person is an unwritten rule and that doing your job without caring leads to mistakes. And in our job field a mistake means death. They weren't having it, so I finally said, "Look, in this job field you need to learn to read people, and in telling you that something isn't right here." City council told me that basically I was jealous because he got along with the emts. Honestly, I could care less. I'm not in this job for them. Fast forward a month and I get a call from an air about an hour from us. They said that their report said the patient was administered 80 milligrams of dog X. The patient denied receiving it, and since they couldn't figure out WTF the medic would have even given it, they ran a tox panel on him which showed that he did not receive it. The doc told me normally he'd let it slide as an error and ask me to speak to him about accuracy, but he felt something was off. I thanked him and after hanging up pulled the trip sheets. Right in the run report it has the dog, the amount given, and the time. I pulled up the narcotics log. It showed dog given and replenished along with the tag numbers. Next I called a friend of mine who is a local cop and was off duty at the time. He came over and I opened the other medic's narc box. Sure enough it had been opened and replaced. We then went through his logs for the past 2 months he had been working and located at least 12 times dogs had been given when probably not needed. I called the air doc back and explained to him and his exact quote, "Here's my personal phone number and our lawyer's number. I'll fax you over a written statement along with the test results. I'll see if we have anything on other patients he brought in." My buddy then called dispatch to tell the council members there was an emergency at the station and they need to come in. When they got there we showed them all the evidence and what we suspected. Within 15 minutes we not only had a DAR approval but also a judge sign an arrest warrant. Turns out the dude admitted to having a 20-year painkiller addiction that he ran out of sources, so he figured being a medic would give him easy access. He even told the judge he was worried that he would have killed someone just for the meds. At the trial I was asked for what resolution I wanted. I told the judge being a paramedic I've seen how dogs change a person and that I don't hold him fully responsible. On my recommendation he got 3 months in a locked dog rehab facility followed by 6 months of house arrest. 4 years later the dude is clean and runs a fundraiser to help raise money for the end to provide anonymous Narcan services and dog awareness programs. Today this guy would be an honored member of my crew. Addiction literally changes people. The end result is I now am solely responsible for hiring the medics, reviewing, and dismissal. I no longer need to justify to council why someone was dismissed. This job is one where a gut feeling decides someone's fate.